Hey, everybody, welcome into the Auburn Live Basketball Show. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Justin Hokanson Jay Phillips here. Hey, real quick, go to auburnlive.com, subscribe. I think we're still doing the deal. Yeah, we're still doing the deal. $25 gets you access to the site until the end of next August. So basically, it's going to run right up till the beginning of college football season. If you haven't done it by now, it's not too late. You still got recruiting happening. You still got the transfer portal. You still got the late signing period. And then, of course, you have all the basketball coverage from a team that's trying to make an NCAA tournament run and all that good stuff. So still plenty of stuff to read and get up on. And, of course, the message board, which is always a fun place to have some banter. So $25 through next August, auburnlive.com. Jay, what's happening, man?
Not much. Glad that Auburn got a nice little win on the road last night over Washington. That was definitely a feel-good win. I saw your tweet after the game that Bruce Pearl said it was a must-win. Certainly felt like that. They certainly played like that, and good to see them able to knock it out.
Yeah, I thought I'll plug my phone in so it doesn't run out. Let's talk about these last two games, this West Coast trip. They go to USC. They lose on Sunday, 74-71. They come back on Wednesday night at Washington and crush Washington 84-61. Bruce said after the Washington game, he thought, despite the loss to USC, he thought it was a productive trip. He thought it was a productive trip. And I tend to agree. I know they lost to USC, and in my opinion, they shouldn't have lost. Like, they're better than USC. I think 23 turnovers and you still just lose by 3 on the road. I thought Auburn gave that game away. Washington probably, it could have been one of their best games. St. Louis is probably one of their best wins. Northwestern is a good team. That was just really ugly. But Washington, one of the things that happened in the first half of that game, I remember tweeting. So Auburn got up maybe early second half. I can't remember. Auburn got up by about 10, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think it was late first half. And I said, all right, here's what I want to see from this team. They're up 10. They're controlling the game. They're the better team right now. I want to see them maintain that control of the basketball game. It's just going to show me some growth from this team if they were able to maintain that and not let Washington come back, shoot some crazy high percentage in the second half, and this is a 1-point game and all that good stuff. And for the most part, they did. Washington cut it into 6 or something at one point, but Auburn came out second half, pushed it to 10 and really kept it there, was up 25 at one point. That was really impressive to me. It was good to see them maintain that lead and build on that lead. They only committed 4 turnovers in the second half of the Washington game. There's just a lot of good things I thought came from that. And even the USC game, even though it was a loss, Trey Donaldson played well. Janai Broome played well. I thought there were some good things, some good growth opportunities there for that team. They just made too many mistakes. So I thought going into this West Coast trip that it was going to be a really productive, one way or another. This trip was going to be really important for this team. It was they're either going to go 0-2 and continue to play, average basketball, or they were going to have some adversity. They're going to battle through it, go 2-0, 1-1, fine, but they were going to come out on the other side growing some. And I thought I saw that against Washington. I thought the Washington was the fruits of some of that growth.
Yeah.
So I agree with Bruce in terms of those 2 games being a productive 2 games, a productive trip, a week out from SEC play. That's how I see it. Do you agree, disagree with me? How do you see it?
I'm with you completely on that. And kind of like you're saying, there were the USC game, the Washington game, they got to see the things they've been working on, the things they've been changing up. Those kind of came to fruition and paid off in the Washington game and led to a big win in a lot of ways. The focus on the front court, the different guard rotations, everything was just clicking a little better. Wasn't this team's best game in terms of how good they can be, but it was probably their best game so far. I think the USC game had a lot of that too. The USC game, there were so many tangible improvements in that game. You had Trey Donaldson, you had Janai Broome coming back, you had Jalen Williams playing really well and stretching the court, but there were just so many things that were almost out of Auburn's control. Wendell Green went down. Jalen Williams got hurt and couldn't close the game. The fouls were just, good or bad. There were so many of them that they really limited Auburn. And, they basically took Trey Donaldson out of the game there for a while too. And that was one of their best sources of offense. So I think there were a lot of tangible improvements in that USC game as well. They just were harder to pick out and harder to, champion because of the result of the game. But the Washington game, that was just that. I feel like it's exactly what this team needed. Hopefully it gives them a little confidence in the sense of, hey, these things we've been working on just paid off. Let's keep working on it. Let's keep improving a little bit. Plenty of stuff to still improve on, but they seem to be going in the right direction more right now than they have at any other point in the season. The undefeated start was great, but there were some glaring holes, and those holes got exposed pretty quickly when the competition stepped up.
Yeah, I agree. And Washington, look, Bruce Pearl said after the game, Washington's not a great team. They're a good team, and I think that's fair. Defensively, they came into that game, Washington, not bad. I mean, they were 60th or something in KenPom defensive rankings. They were 41st in another rankings in terms of field goal percentage defense, 41st in the country. Remember, there's 330 something teams, so 65 and 41. That's good. It's one of the better. It's a good number. So they had been playing decent defense, and of course Auburn had not been playing great offense for most of the year, outside of a couple of games, and Auburn torched them. I mean, they torched them. They shot. Let's see, what was the final for the game? They shot 56% from the field, 47% from three, 8 of 17 for three. We won't mention the 63% from the free throw line.
I got to say, though, and I'm not sure if I have the numbers right, but I feel like Auburn's best two shooting games have come on the road, with this one and Bradley.
Bradley's one of them. I was looking at it yesterday. Bradley's one of them. Colgate was another really good game shooting-wise. But, yeah, Bradley, which was that neutral site game, their effective field goal percentage in that game was 63%. They then immediately followed that up
with the worst shooting night,
31% against Northwestern. But yeah, it was. I mean, that game, that Bradley game, and then Colgate was effective field goal percentage of 62%.
Okay,
and then Washington ended up being effective field goal percentage of 62%. So that's your top three. But Bradley and Colgate to me aren't the same competition as Washington. Right. Not to mention being on the road. Although Bradley's about the same caliber team in terms of resume. They're quad 2 game. They're about the same kind of team, but it's a different deal on the road in Washington. Pretty good crowd for anybody that didn't watch it on TV. It was a good crowd. It's not like there was, a couple thousand people there. It was probably 80% full or so and pretty loud, but Auburn did their job, and it was not a weak crowd by any means.
I've been impressed with how many Auburn fans showed up on this road trip too. You could hear them at USC pretty well at several points in the game.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of hitting those clubs, the Seattle club and the LA club, and getting them there. And that's huge. I mean, for those people, when are they? Unless they travel to Auburn, that's their chance to watch Auburn play. Huge deal. So I wrote about the Washington game a little bit, and man, the forwards all of a sudden. And so what's funny is we talked about on the last show, we specifically talked about Jalen Williams and Janai Broome, and how they have to be, I say the focal point. I think the way Auburn runs offense, I don't know that they'll ever be the focal point, but they have got to get, we said, hey, look, Jalen and Williams and Janai need to combine for 15 shots a game. That should probably be the minimum that they combine for. And really in these last two games, you've seen that start to happen. And of course, against Washington, those two combined for 27 shots. They go 15 of 27, those two, for 36 points and 16 rebounds combined. You toss in Chris Moore, who went 12 and who had 12 points. And those three forwards accounted for I think it was 48 points of Auburn's 84. So, I mean, Jalen and Janai, I think really quickly over these last two games have become – I like to see Janai getting better. It looks like he's getting a little bit more efficient, maybe getting a little bit healthier in terms of his lift. But those are your two guys. They're the most – they're efficient around the basket. They're pretty accurate. They're pretty smart with it. Janai still, I think, sometimes tries to do too much.
Yeah.
He needs to stand tall, make a move, and use his touch around the basket. A little bit, yes, there's a little bit too many spin moves and different things, and that I think hurt his length. Stand tall, use your left hand shot. But those two guys are the focal point. I mean, Wendell, KD, everybody else. There's kind of those ups and downs in terms of their accuracy shooting the basketball. But Jalen and Janai, if they continue to sort of go through them when they have the chance, because it's difficult. Auburn, they're running and they're trying to get quick points. If that doesn't work, they then pull it back out and they'll run a set. So it's not always easy to run through, because then when they do set it up, who knows what's going to happen half the time. But Jalen and Janai, man, that's your guys. That's your guys you got to continue to build on offense. You cannot have there does not need to be a game like we talked about where they have, a small amount of shots. They're just too important and too effective down low. You saw what they could do. They carried. Jalen had 14 in the first half. Janai had 12 of his 18 in the second half. And so like they literally dominated one half of the other. Those two guys are quickly becoming your reliable guys, your stalwarts.
And Dylan Cardwell had, 6 points on 3 of 3 shooting as well. Chris Moore only missed one shot. Those big guys are just – and the way – if Auburn just keeps playing through them, it feels like it establishes such a much higher floor for this team. Because like you're saying, KD, Wendell, those guys have the ability to take games over and win by themselves, but it's not going to be every night.
Yeah.
You got to have something consistent, something reliable. And I'm still questioning Jalen. I love Jalen Williams. I love his game. I love what he's been doing this season, but he's had a tendency to just completely disappear at times.
Yep.
Hopefully that, hopefully the lights turned on now that he doesn't have Jabari in front of him or JT Thor backing him up or anything like that, but we'll see. I'm hoping he can, because he is really putting together a great season. I mean, I think maybe like 3 of Auburn's last 4 games he's been the Ken Pom MVP on, and or wins maybe. I'm not sure about. I guess USC wouldn't have been anyway, but either way, it's just been game after game for him, and it's something we've been waiting on since he was a freshman, it seems like, and he's putting it together. But yeah, I think those guys really give you such a good floor. You play through them, you get that consistent, that solid points per possession stat going on with those guys, and then you got games when Wendell's going to go off, when KD's going to go off, and who's going to stop you at that point kind of thing. But I really like the defense in the front court, giving this team an identity.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen's shooting 39% from 3, 52% from 2. And he's shooting basically 50% outside of basically a couple of feet from the basket. Anything mid-range, let's call it, he's shooting 50% from 2. He's averaging 10 points. Let's see where he's at. He's averaging 10 and 5.5 right now, plus a steal plus a game, a block a game. So you're getting 10-5, and then you're getting something from him across the board. And so he's pretty impressive, plus 2 assists a game. I mean, so basically every night from Jalen, you're getting 10 points, 2 assists, 5.5 rebounds, a steal, a block, every single time he steps on the court, and he's shooting. Of course, I'm looking at this here. It looks like he's shooting 41%, 42% from 3.
And I pulled it up last night watching the game. He didn't make a 3 in Auburn's first 3 games, and I didn't do it at the end of the game yet. But at halftime of last night's game, Jalen Williams can't remember the exact amount of shots, but he was shooting 56.5% from 3 since his first make of the season. So it took him a little while to get going, but he's just been red hot since then.
He's been great. And he's one of those guys that is a pretty decent spot up 3-point shooter. And he didn't do it well last year. Nobody did it well last year, really, other than Jabari.
Right.
everybody sort of struggled, including Jalen, which was weird. And so it's good to see him get back in there. But yeah, but you're right about Jalen. I mean, there are times where he can disappear. And look, if you go back to, I mean, I say disappear. I mean, this is where it depends on the offense and how things are flowing. And now granted, Auburn's second half offense was awesome last night. So this is maybe a bad example. But Jalen was 2 for 3 in the second half of the game with 4 points. Now, everybody was on fire. Janabrin was 6 of 7. Chris Moore was 2 for 2. KD was 2 for 4. Dylan had a few dunks. So Auburn was scoring. There wasn't really a need. There wasn't a drought or like a need to go back to Jalen.
Right.
But there's instances right there where he can just kind of take 3 shots, whereas he took 7 in the first half and scored 14. So that's kind of Jalen, though. For anybody that knows Jalen, he's just not the most assertive guy.
Yeah.
Vocally, whatever it is, he's just not the most assertive guy. But I think that this will change a little bit. I think that some of these games and him producing the way he is, I think that'll change a little bit. I don't think he'll need to be the vocal guy. I think the way it's happening right now, he's going to get the ball. I think the players see how important he is. I think they see the production. I think Bruce and his staff see it. And so I don't think Jalen's going to necessarily need to not, be anything other than himself out on the court. I think he's going to get the ball, and I think he knows when he gets the ball that he's allowed to go at it and try to do something with it. And so I think he's had obviously a big couple of games. Let's talk about Wendell a little bit, because I feel like I get it. If you look at the stats, people are down on Wendell right now. First of all, he's not 100%. He's played 2 games with a bum ankle. And so it was a rough deal that he had to come out on this West Coast road trip, a long week, and he's had a bum ankle. It's probably been a long week for him. I kind of feel for him a little bit. Played like 12 minutes against USC, didn't play well. Played 20 minutes against Washington, but again, he was 2 for 9 for the field, 1 for 5 from 3, 5 turnovers, 4 assists. Got to the free throw line, hit 6 free throws, so he finished with 11 points. But, not quite himself right now. And given that, Auburn still allowed a 3-point loss and then a 23-point win on the road. And I think a big reason of that is Trey Donaldson's emergence and him playing well at that backup point guard spot all of a sudden. But what do you kind of make of, one, where Wendell Green's at, getting him healthy, and then 2, Trey Donaldson? I said last night, let me find it. I said last night, where's it at? Hold on. Trey Donaldson. So Trey Donaldson's first 2 road games of his career, USC, Washington, combined 14 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, just 3 turnovers. And he had a box plus minus of plus 19 against USC and plus 12 against Washington. I mean, that is hyper impressive for a true freshman in his first 2 road games, backing up at point guard when he hasn't been playing a lot. Really, Georgia State before that was kind of the game where he broke out. Then he goes on the road and plays these 2 games. So Trey Donaldson's emergence is at the perfect time, given that Wendell's going through these health issues. But what do you sort of make of the point guard position? Give it a week. Wendell gets healthy. Now you've got Wendell healthy, an emerging confident Trey. Chance needs to get healthy, but how do you sort of see that point guard position now going into SEC play in terms of productivity, and what's your confidence in that position?
I like it a lot more, obviously, and it's good with Trey emerging because Wendell Green has been one of those players who's been, inconsistent at times. He's been as good as anyone in the country at times, and also has some, some downsides where turnovers can be a problem, bad shots can be a problem, and stuff like that. He's had some, I guess it was against USC as well. His defense was a little lacking due to his ankle, I think, but he's played good defense this year for the most part too. But I really think that getting Trey in there, he's kind of another one of those floor stabilizers if he keeps playing the way he is. If Wendell's having a bad stretch or something, you can put Trey in there. You might not be quite as explosive of an offense at your peak, but you're still going to have, Trey's a good facilitator. He's an unselfish player, and he can knock down threes and stuff like that too. I do like where the point guard position is going. Seems like it is a lot more stable and still has the upside with Wendell. But I think Trey really needs to get some time at the 2 guard alongside Wendell. With Trey's shooting and just the black hole that the shooting guard position has been, it really just kind of seems like an easy fix there, even if it's only a temporary thing until maybe Katie Johnson or Chance Westry or Zep Jasper can find a little more on offense. But, you just see Zep out there. I don't remember how many shots he had last night, maybe 3, but
2.
Yeah, 2. Okay. And, there's just that shooting guard spot in the past has been so effective. Think of Bryce Brown, Samir Dowdy, all these guys that Auburn has had in there just scoring 20 points a game just because they can shoot kind of thing half the time. Those guys were great players, don't get me wrong, but just having that shooting ability at that position and somebody who's a confident shooter is going to make a big difference. Katie Johnson is like that sometimes, but he's as inconsistent as they come this year. And it's interesting. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Chance Westry as well, though, because that's one that I see all over Twitter and the message board is that, people are wondering if he's a bust or wondering if he's going to play, wondering if he's getting benched, what's going on. He didn't play until the last 90 seconds of the night, and that's just not common for Bruce Pearl goes out and gets a top 50 guard who's a defensive specialist, and he's hardly playing. It's a little strange.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, obviously Chance got hurt, came back. I wonder where he's at health-wise in terms of what was he? Is he 80%? Because there is some legitimate rehab time. So I'm wondering where he's at, if that's affecting his confidence on the basketball court. Because he was in Israel this summer, Chance was a different player. Immediately he was good. He was confident. He was the best guard. And now he doesn't look like that player. So I have to think some of that is due to the injury and maybe losing a little bit of confidence. But yeah, you look at where Chance is at. He's a 31% shooter. He hasn't hit a 3 this year. It's just he's just he's just producing nothing. He's just producing nothing. I think last night against Washington, I would guess if I had to try to read Bruce Pearl's mind and kind of why Chance basically didn't play and Lior Berman got 12 minutes. I think that was a game that Auburn had to win. I think they needed to win that game, and I think it was, hey, Chance is not playing particularly well. We're on the road. Probably not going to fix it. Probably not going to fix it on the road against USC and Washington. Probably not going to come back and just fix this. We need to win this game. And so I'm going to give Lior a few more minutes, try to get a little bit of stability. Lior hit a 3, committed a couple of fouls, but wasn't detrimental in any way. Had an assist in those 12 minutes. So that would be my guess, was just, hey, I'm going to play Lior. He deserves some minutes here. I'm going to give Chance a little bit of rest. I'm not going to throw him out there and make him try to fix kind of what's going on or get his confidence back on the road. That's probably not the best recipe for that. And let Lior go out there and be physical and play and just kind of have some stability in this road game and try to get the W. I think Chance is too talented. Chance will get there. He's just got to get some confidence back. I've watched him enough, whether it's in Israel or in practice. He's really good. And so I think he just needs to get, like I said, he just needs to get his confidence back. Him and Yuan, to me, are in the same boat. To me, watching them play, they don't look like confident top 50 elite blue chip high school players that are they don't look like it. They're not acting like it. They just, when they're out there, they're not looking for their shots. They're just sort of part of the team.
Yeah.
Kind of trying to blend in. And I don't know. I think they're better than that. I think that when they're in the game, there needs to be some, maybe that's Bruce trying to run shot to get you on a top of the key 3 or a corner 3 or or run a set where Chance gets to come off the screen and drive or whatever. But I think those two guys, just got to get their confidence up. Yuan, I think, hit a 3 last night. Or let's see, he did. No, he had a dunk, I think. But again,
he hit a 3 as well.
Yeah, just 2 points. Just 2 points. 2 points, just 2 shots for Yuan. So
I expected a lot more from Yohan, but he's almost, it's almost reasonable that he's the way he is with just his lack of basketball experience moving over from France not too long ago. And I just really expected, Yohan, I expect more from him at the end of the season still, but that was kind of always especially with Bruce Pearl saying they were going to play through Jalen Williams. I had a lot of confidence in Yohan, but I saw it being a work in progress, kind of like Chuma was. And Chance Westry, though, is just, it seemed like at the very least he was going to come in and be an elite defender and, a slasher and a ball handler and stuff like that. And it seems like no matter what he does, he just has no confidence in
it. Yeah, and look, at the end of last year, I remember talking to Bruce Pearl, and he said, I should have played Lior more. That 3 position was a disaster last year, and he was like, I should have played Lior more. And so you got to wonder if maybe he's thinking that right now, going out. Lior's just got to get a few more minutes at whether it's 2 or 3, which everyone's kind of struggling at the time. Put him in there.
He actually played more first half minutes than KD did too. Lior did.
Yeah, that's just wild. You mentioned that shooting guard spot. Zep and KD were 3 for 6 against Washington. That's fine. 3 for 6, 50%. That's great. But it's just wild to see both your 2 guards shoot 6 total shots. And that's really all they did. They had 3 steals between them. Now they committed 0 turnovers, Zep and KD. That's more important. That's probably as important as them scoring, if not more, was the fact that these guys, Zep doesn't turn the ball over. KD does. But they had no turnovers in that game, 3 steals between them, a couple of assists. Those guys were just really reserved, but they did their job, KD and Zep. But yeah, it's just weird to look at your 2 guard spot in a game that was maybe your best offensive game, and you see 6 shots. But that was for Auburn. That was smart basketball last night. They had an advantage inside, and they used it. And Janai and Jalen shot 27 times, which is what should have happened. And your 2 guards shoot 6. Probably could have taken a few more, but they actually played good, intelligent basketball. They had an advantage inside, so they went through Janai. They went through Jalen. They went through Chris Moore. And those guys got opportunities. And it wasn't a game where you're just jacking threes and you're giving up your advantage, which they can do sometimes, where you have an advantage and instead you just get shots taken. Wendell still took 9 shots, took some threes, but that's what Wendell's going to do.
And a bunch of those were late shot clock threes.
Yeah, late shot clock stuff, right? And a couple of them went in and out. Like Wendell should have had a few of those buckets go down. In all reality, but it was just a smart game offensively for Auburn last night, and you don't always get that. You're going to get games where Jalen's got 6 shots and KD's got 13, and you're wondering what in the world. Those are the frustrating games. Is when you start to see that kind of imbalance. But it was a good game all around. Outside of Wendell's 2 for 9, every other player that scored, which was I think 11. I think all 12 players scored, including Chance in a minute. In the minute he played, Chance scored. But outside of Wendell, every other player shot at least 50%. Jalen was 6 of 10. Janai was 9 of 17. Chris Moore was 5 for 6. And then you had Zep 1 for 2, KD 2 for 4, Trey 1 for 2, Chance hit his only shot, Yuan 1 for 2, Allen 1 for 2, Lior hit his only shot, and then Dylan was 3 for 3. So just effective and productive up and down the line. And Trey Donaldson, 7 assists. We got to specifically shout that out.
Definitely.
7 dimes and 4 rebounds and a steal for Trey Donaldson. That kid he is savvy. You can tell, you can see his football ability out there. He's gritty. He's savvy. He's physical tough. He's got a moxie about him. It's the kind of thing you see a lot of times from a football player that's used to that super physical style. obviously play in football, and he's a safety. He's a defensive guy. He's hard nosed, and he's just not scared. He's just not scared at all.
Yeah, he is such a smart player too, and it's his ability is behind his IQ right now, and he's still a talented player, but you can just tell that he's going to improve significantly the more he plays basketball or concentrates on basketball. But we were talking about it on the corner. There was a play against, I think it was USC, where they ran a set play and they were targeting the player that Trey was defending. I don't remember if it was Boogie Ellis or who, but it was some sort of back cut play, and it was a misdirection, and Trey seemingly fell for the misdirection on the play, but just immediately he knew it was coming, and he baited the passer into making the pass and everything, but he went for the misdirection, turned around, jumped right into the passing lane, and took off. And it's just he makes plays like that are just uncommon for a freshman, especially defensively. You know why Bruce Pearl likes him so much too. He can make those kind of plays, and the assists were great too. He had the full court pass to Janai Brome that was, very much a quarterback play. It was just got the ball, surveyed the field, hit his receiver kind of thing, and he's just been fun to watch. But he makes a lot of plays that are oh man, when he's doing this 90% of the game, he can definitely be a starting point guard in the SEC.
Yeah. Maybe the biggest development, honestly, of the early season is what Trey's done the last 3 games. Probably, I think it can't be understated, the importance of what he's doing, combined with Chance struggling, combined with Wendell being banged up. Wendell can struggle at times. Trey's emergence is massive if he can keep it up. We'll see. SEC play could be different, but he'll have his ups and downs. But I like what I've seen enough to think that he's not going anywhere. It's not a game. It's not a fluke. It's not a really good game against Georgia State. He's now done 3 games in a row. He's played smart. He's played productive. He hasn't just gone in there and imploded or had some freshman game where he's just turning it over left and right. He hasn't done that.
And that might happen, but
it might, right. He'll have his games, but I've seen now enough the last 3 games to think that I think Trey will be a guy you can count on for the most part in the SEC now. I just his emergence to me is massive for this team.
Yeah,
I was looking at kind of where Auburn stands in some statistics, and they're still one of the better defensive teams in the country. Offense is basically middle of the pack. Shooting wise, not they're still in the 300s, 3-point shooting. So look, they're still not a great shooting team, but they're playing a high level of defense. They're doing a good job on offensive boards, which is helping them on offense. I think their offensive rebounding rate is still 15th in the country, and so that's helping them as well. And now you start conference play. Look, you got your best win is Northwestern, who's that's a quad 1 win. Your other quad 1 game was Memphis. You lost it, and then USC is right on the border. We'll see how USC does this year. That could easily be a quad 1 loss. They're kind of right on the bubble, I would say. And now you immediately jump into Florida next week, who is probably the second best team you've played outside of Memphis. And you get into this thing. I do like what Auburn just did. You get a week off, and now you get Florida. What are your concerns? What are your optimistic encouragements heading into SEC play? What do you really like where they're at, and where do you think are some areas or area that they got to get right, because conference play is now, and it's hard to get right when you start SEC play. It just takes time.
Yeah, I'm really encouraged that they seem to have found some identity in the past few games with how they're targeting the front court. I think that goes a long way. At the very least, it gives you a game plan and something that seems to be sort of, or not very matchup dependent. Colin Castleton in Florida is going to be quite the test for game 1, but it's still, you're not looking at Auburn's front court, even against Kentucky and Sheboy and some of these really big name players, and saying, oh man, Auburn can't do anything against them. You got Jalen Williams and Janai Brome seeming like they can do this against anyone right now. So I really like that. Credit the guards as well. They're really targeting the front court. Last year they got knocked for that a lot, for not going to Jabari and Walker when things broke down. this year they've improved that a good bit. So I really like that. I like the defense, of course. I am just still concerned with this team's overall. It's not that Auburn isn't talented, but there's so much talent there that's not showing itself. Mainly freshmen and Chance Westry and Yohan Traore, but Katie Johnson as well. And I think that these guys, like you're saying, it gets to a point where you can't really work anything new into the game plan and into the lineups and stuff. And we're getting to that point, and we're not seeing much from them. Obviously, if Yohan Traore just starts hitting threes and driving to the basket, you can't keep him on the bench. Same goes for Chance Westry. But the longer we go, the shorter Auburn's ceiling gets, kind of thing, it seems like. So that's a concern for me, is if those guys are going to be able to get out there. In terms of the in-game play as well, the shooting that we've seen has been concerning, and the offense overall. Hopefully the front court thing kind of sorts some of that out, but we'll see. That and the shooting guard position in general, though, it's just something that there's so much more potential in.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think for me, I think Jalen and the way he's playing is probably your positive. Janai playing a little bit better the last two games. That's your number one positive going into conference play for me, because everything else has been sort of inconsistent with this team.
Yep.
But those two guys are starting to be pretty effective consistently. And they're tough. They're tough guards. Jalen's a difficult player to defend.
Yeah,
he can shoot three. And he's good around the rim. He can elevate. He can jump. He's got good touch. Jalen's a really good player. If Jalen were on a team that was a lesser talent, and he was the guy, Jalen would be scoring 16, 17 a game and grabbing 8 boards. He'd be that kind of player. So I think him and Janai and what they're doing is the best thing Auburn's got going for him, if they realize it. And not just realize it, the coaches know it, but if the players that are out there, and mainly the guards, make it a point to look for them, and make it a point where they don't go minutes where they're not getting touches down low and you're not working through them. And because look, Wendell and Katie, I love their passion. I love their passion. I love what they bring to the team in a lot of ways, but there are times when it can become one-on-one basketball. And that is not where Auburn is at their best. It never has been. And so those two forwards are huge. Obviously, Trey's emergence is massive. And I'm really curious to see Wendell gets back healthy. Wendell's still your guy because he's such a great creator and he's a good three-point shooter. But I am curious to see what Trey's done the last 3 games, regardless of Wendell's health. What does that do for Trey in terms of playing time? I am curious to see. I think Trey has earned, regardless of Wendell's health, I think Trey's earned, this type of playing time moving forward. He played 18 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's earned that going forward. And look, if you're Chance Westry, I think you're just right now, you're just have to work yourself back in, because right now it needs to be Wendell and Trey. And if you want to try to move Chance in at the 2 or 3 at times, but I think Trey has absolutely earned the right to be the backup point guard right now and get 15, 20 minutes. And Chance is just going to have to work himself back in and figure out where he sort of gets into play. I would say negative going in is, that 2-guard spot, just kind of a lack of production. Zep probably needs a few more opportunities to get a spot up 3-point shot, or maybe take advantage of some other opportunities. 1 for 2, he's a good spot up shooter. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know. They're pretty good on defense. 3-point shooting, they're not going to fix. They're just going to have good games and bad games. So that's really, like, worrying about that is just kind of, it is what it is. They're going to have games like last night where, Jalen was 2 of 3 and Chris Moore hit both of his, and Zep hit 1 and KD hit 1 and Lior hit 1. And you're going to have those games, and then you're going to have a 4 for 24. There's nothing really you can do about it. Turnovers hadn't really been a huge issue for the team. It was against USC. But that's kind of an outlier really so far. Really, they're kind of about a 12, 13 turnover a game, which is not bad. For the way they play, that's not detrimental. 20 is. 23 is a problem. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I would say that 2-guard spot and trying to figure out how do you get production there without interfering with the way Janai and Jalen are playing. I mean, you can't have it all. You can't have Jalen and Janai are getting 25 shots a game, and then also your 2 guards. This team, to me, is developed into run through the forwards and then figure out how the other guys get good looks. That's how the team probably needs to be playing right now. And we'll see if they sort of continue that or how they adjust to that. But it needs to be come down, run your initial, try to get a bucket, but then it's Jalen and Janai, try to work through them and let them kick it back out at times and get threes that way. I mean, they were as productive. If I'm Bruce Pearl, I'm walking in to the locker room and I'm slapping this up and I'm going, Jalen Janai shot 27 shots. They were unbelievably effective. They're our most effective players. And lo and behold, it's our best offensive game. Nobody else felt pressed. Nobody else felt rushed. We didn't have, we weren't jacking threes left and right. 17 threes for a Bruce Pearl team, like that's a good number.
Yeah, I agree.
Relatively low, honestly. There's plenty of games where that number is over 20. Most of the time, that's going to be over 20 threes in a game. 17 is a really good number. Quickly looking, 20. I mean, here's their 3-point attempts this year: 25, 25, 23, 27. Oh, Bradley. What did we talk about earlier? Bradley was one of their best offensive games. 8 of 17 from 3. Exactly what they shot against Washington. Then you come back, 21 threes, 16 against St. Louis, but St. Louis is a good team, 3 for 16, 22, 24, 23. So most of the time, Auburn's shooting 20-plus threes, probably close to 25. But you look at 2 of their best offensive games were 8 of 17 from 3. That's 17 numbers. So I think that's if they can stay there, work through Jalen and Janai, and try to stay under 23s shot, I think that's a sweet spot for this team. They're not good enough 3-point shooting team to be shooting 25 threes. There's no point.
Yeah, I agree. You got to have that balance to an extent where the backcourt's giving the defense enough pressure to free up the front court, or else you're going to get what Auburn got last year. And, teams just weren't afraid of Auburn on the perimeter, but just hitting those shots consistently is a big deal there. Trey Donaldson, Wendell Green most times. Alan Flanagan's been pretty good there. Jalen Williams as well, helping stretch the defense out from that 4 position. His playmaking and his shooting both. But I like the balance, a little more production out of that 2-guard role just because there's so much potential there. And, like Katie Johnson being a player who can score when things break down as well. I just like to see a little more consistency, something to rely on out of that position at least.
Yeah, and you mentioned Al. You mentioned Al Flanagan. He had been playing well, but the last couple of games he's kind of reverted back to struggling. He's committed 11 turnovers in the last 3 games, which is not great. He had been doing a really good job. He had a bad game against South Florida, but everything else this year was a turnover, 1 turnover, 1 turnover, 0, 1, 1, 1. And then he's coming. Georgia State, he committed 4. USC committed 3. Washington, he committed 4. He played 19 minutes against Washington. He played 19 minutes against Washington, and he committed 4 turnovers and got 4 rebounds and made a shot. So he had been playing well, but the last few games he's sort of reverted back to somebody that's a liability, turning the ball over. So need to get him back settled, back into playing smart, focused basketball because he was doing a really good job. He had some really nice box plus minuses this year.
Auburn, with Wendell Green out to put him into more of that facilitator role, and he can do that, but that just isn't where he's at his best. He's at his best as a wing scorer and defender kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, keep defending, but he can't press things. It falls apart for him when he presses things. And so need to get him back settled a little bit too. But we'll see. I think Auburn had a good road trip, like Bruce Pearl said. You lose to USC, but that's a game you should have won. You don't turn the ball over 23 times, and then you come back and you smoke Washington. So we'll see. Come back, beat Florida. You're 1-0 in conference. You're 11-2. Go from there. You're back. I think you're back on track a little bit. It's probably been a few years. So I have to go back and look since Auburn entered conference play with even just 2 losses. I mean, I guess the Final Four team, they lost to Duke. They generally maybe have 1 or none, but they enter with that 1 extra loss. But I still think they're in good shape. Look, the SEC, I mean, Kentucky struggled against Florida A&M the other night. I mean, outside of Alabama, who's been, Houston, great win. Gonzaga played really well. Gonzaga was really good. Alabama, Tennessee, I think, have shown themselves to be pretty good. And Arkansas, too. Those 3 teams, I think, have separated themselves. But after that, we're so hypercritical and focused on the way Auburn's playing and things like that. And I get it, but Auburn's they're still maybe probably that 4th or 5th best team in the league right now. Florida could be, that'll be a big game, but they're still right there. There's a lot of improvement Auburn can make. Get Westry growing a little bit. Get Treyarch growing a little bit. Get Wendell healthy. This team can still do some really good things in conference. Just want to kind of continue to see some of that growth we saw against Washington. Let's see it against Florida. Let's see it against Georgia on the road. I mean, they got a chance. You look at that schedule, Florida at home. Then you get another week off, by the way. So basically, next 2 weeks, Auburn's going to play 1 game at home against Florida. So it's a great opportunity for Wendell to get healthy, Janai to get in good shape, Chance to get confidence and get healthy. It's a great opportunity. You play Florida, you play Georgia on the road. So you can be 2-0, and then you come home for a massive game against Arkansas on a Saturday that should be January 7th, that should be packed out. Monster game. You could be 2-0, and you could be sitting at 12-2, probably 20th, 19th in the country, something like that, and you're playing Arkansas for a huge game at home. Let's see where that team is. You got 2 weeks, you got 2 games. Let's see where this team is when they play Arkansas on January 7th.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty big test.
Huge test. Huge test. All right, well, let's get out of here, man. Good productive trip for Auburn, capped off by a 23-point win against Washington. Nice home and home for Auburn against Washington. They beat them by 20 in 2018. I mean, beat the brakes off. They were up close to 30 at points in that game.
Yeah, that was a dominant one.
And then in between there, the football team took care of business against Washington in Atlanta. So schedule Washington in sporting events more is what I say.
I agree. Keep the Pac-12 teams coming.
Yeah, owning them. All right, Jay, let's roll. Appreciate everybody joining us. Auburn Live Basketball Show. We'll be back. We'll be back next week after Florida to talk about that Florida game. Make sure you go to auburnlive.com, subscribe. Again, $25 gets you access through next August. So go be a part of a growing site. Jay will have some breakdown of Auburn, Washington up on the site.
Yep.
Kind of more the schematics and how it worked and why it worked and all that good stuff. So make sure you check that out. All right, for Jay, I'm Justin. We'll see you next time. Bye.